Hi students, today's lesson is on one-step equations. It says addition and subtraction equations because there are four types of one-step equations. There's the addition one-step equations, subtraction one-step equations, and then there's a multiplication one-step equation and division one-step equation. Today we're going to focus on addition and subtraction one-step equations. Okay, and it is called one-step equation because it literally takes one step to solve an equation. Okay, the big idea of the lesson is this. So let's just say I have a problem that looks like this. My little notebook here. So let's just say I have an equation x plus 2 is equal to 10, and I ask you, what is the value of x that makes the equation true? Then hopefully you all know that the answer is 8. And if I ask students, how did you get 8? There are multiple ways, a student would answer that question. The most common answer I would get is something like this. Oh, I know that this is 8 because 8 plus 2 is 10. Some other students will say, well, I got 8 here because 10 minus 2 is equal to 8. Okay, now, so what we are going to learn today is how to officially show the proper work for one-step equations. And this is very important. Even if you know how to solve this problem using your head without showing work, it's very important that you follow directions and show the work the way I teach, because it is a foundation to eventually for you to solve much more complicated problems. Okay? All right, so hopefully you guys understand that even if the problem may seem easy and you just want to use your head to just calculate and give me the answer, you're going to need to show work. So what do I mean by work? Well, these are the things that you need to do. To solve a one-step equation, you need to, number 1, write the original problem. Number 2, you're going to identify which numbers should be removed or eliminated to isolate the variable. Okay, so basically, in this previous problem, in order for you to find what x is, you need to get rid of this number 2 so that you can say x is equal to 8. Okay, and to do that, we are going to first identify what's the number that should be removed, and then what you're going to do is you're going to perform the opposite or inverse operation to both sides of the equation to solve for the variable, and then you will box the answer. Okay, before going over a couple problems, let me just say this. So an equation means the left and the right side of an equation is equal. For example, 2 plus 3 is equal to 5. 2 plus 3 is 5, so 5 is equal to 5, right? So let's just say I have 3 pens on my left side and 3 pens on my right side. Okay, they're equal, they're balanced. So I can say this is equal to this. Now, what happens if I drop one pen? It's not going to be balanced anymore. How do I make it balanced? Well, one thing you can do is you can pick up this pen again. Okay, however, another way you can balance it is if you drop the same number of pens on the other side. Okay, so then let's say I start with 3 pens on both sides, they're equal. If I decide to drop 2 pens here, in order to make it balanced, I'm going to drop the same number of pens on the other side, and then it'll be balanced. So that's what we'll be doing today, okay, to balance the equation so that they will be equal, okay? That is why I said It says perform the opposite operations, and then over here it says to both sides of the equation. Okay, that is so that our equation is going to be balanced. Right now, so I'm sorry. The first type of problems we're gonna solve is using subtraction to solve equation. Okay, so when an equation contains addition, so in the original problem there's an addition, the way you're gonna solve it is by subtracting. So you're gonna do the opposite operation. Subtract the same number from both sides of the equation. Okay, I know that this doesn't really make sense when you just hear it verbally, but when I show you an example, hopefully it's going to make perfect sense. Okay, so let's go ahead and start this problem. It says solve the equation a plus 15 equals 26. Graph the solution on a number line. So I am going to demonstrate how you're going to solve this one-step equation problem. Okay, sorry, let me focus this a little bit better. Okay. All right, so hopefully that's good. First, what you're going to do is you're going to write the original problem. So I'm gonna write a plus 15 is equal to 26. Now, different teachers have different ways to solve this problem. What I always like for students to do is I want you to draw a line on the equation symbol, and the purpose of it is to determine the left side of the equation and the right side of the equation. Now, what I want you to do next is I would like for you to box your variable. This is so that you identify where the variable is. Then what's going to happen is this. In order for you to solve for a, so that a plus 15 is equal to 26, okay, you need to get rid of this number. So you need to remove or eliminate the plus 15. And the way you eliminate plus 15 is to do the opposite operation. So since the operation here is plus 15, the opposite operation of that would be to subtract 15. But remember, these are supposed to be balanced, and if I subtract 15 here on this side of the equation, it is no longer going to be balanced. So to keep it balanced, you subtract or do the same operation also on the other side of the equation. So you're going to do minus 15 on both sides, and you must show this work. Okay, now think about what happens. You have 15 minus 15. What that means is it's going to be 0. In other words, you can get rid of this. So I X it out. Now, what happens? I have a equals, and then on this side, 26 minus 15 is 11. And that's the answer. Okay. That's the answer. Now, how do I check that that answer is correct? Well, if you substitute a for 11 right here and solve it, okay, so to check, if I do 11 plus 15 and see if that is equal to 26, 11 plus 15 is 26. They're equal. So check. I know that 11 is the correct answer. Okay. Now, if you notice, it also says to graph the solution. And graphing the solution on a number line is very easy. First, I'm going to draw a number line right here. And what I always like to do is I don't like to put a 0, or I don't like to start from 0, because then I have to go all the way to 11. So what I simply like to do is, since I know the answer is 11, I like to put it in the middle, and then just a couple numbers to my right, and a couple numbers to my left. Now, then you're going to graph the solution. Now, the solution is A is 11. So 11 is the solution. What you do with the solution is you are going to do a closed circle right on the number line. not above, not below, right on the number line. And that's how you graph the solution. Okay. So let's try the next one. It says solve the equation 5 equals w plus 1.5 and then graph the solution on a number line. So the first thing I am going to do is I'm going to copy down the problem on this side right here. 5 equals w plus 1.5. Okay, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so that it's easier for everybody to see. Okay, so first step was to write the original problem. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify which number to get rid of. So I'm gonna first draw the line and I'm gonna box this variable. Now, the number that you want to get rid of to isolate the variable is the number that's always on the same side of the equation as a variable. Okay, so one always attached to the variable. So both of these numbers are next to the variable, but if you draw a line on the equation, then the number that is on the same side of the equation as the variable is this 1.5. So I'm going to get rid of this plus 1.5 by doing minus 1.5. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, minus 1.5. Okay, now 1.5 minus 1.5 is 0, so I'm going to just exit out. And now I'm going to solve 5 minus 1.5. Now, in class, when I actually do the lesson, I will do this more in detail. Right now, I'm going to kind of take a shortcut, and what I'm going to do is this. Instead of doing 5 minus 1.5, which is what I'm going to do in class, right now I'm just going to work with a decimal, okay? So, because I kind of want you to see the connection to both, okay, decimals and fractions. So, instead of 5, I'm going to write 5.0, and then I'm going to subtract 1.5 or 1.5, 1 and 5 tenths, okay? 1 and 5 tenths is equivalent to 1.5. So I need to borrow. 10 minus 5 is 5. 0 bring down the decimal point. 4 minus 1 is 3. So the answer is 3.5. So 5 minus 1.5 is 3 and 5 tenths equals W, and that's the answer. Okay. Now, how do I graph that solution? 3.5 or 3.5? Well, 3.5 or 3 and 5 tenths is exactly in between 3 and 4, so it'll be right here. All right. Okay. So with that, let's move on. The next part of the lesson is similar to what we just did, but first it was called using subtraction to solve equations. This time it's very similar, but you're going to be using addition to solve equation. Okay? So in this case, what you're going to see in the problems is you're going to see that in the original problem there's subtraction. Okay, so when an equation contains subtraction, solve by adding the same number from both sides of the equation. All right, so let's start with the first one. It says, solve the equation y minus 21 equals 18 and then graph the solution. The way you solve it is exactly the same. Let's take a look. First, write the original problem, y minus 21 equals 18. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line to separate my left side and my right side of the equation. I'm going to box the variable to determine this is a number I want to have by itself. Now, to do that, I need to get rid of the number that's on the same side as the variable, which is this minus 21. Now, minus 21 is same as negative 21, and the opposite of that would be to add 21. So since it's minus 21, to get rid of that, you're gonna add 21, not only on one side, but on both sides of the equation. So this one, you can think of it like this. You have a number line. Here's 0. I have my positive numbers and my negative numbers. Negative 21 is right here. And then if you add 21 again, you're back at 0. Okay? So that means this is 0. And then you just need to solve it. Bring down the y. Bring down the equals. Now, 18 plus 21 is 39. So the answer is y equals 39. How do you graph that solution? Well, you have a number line. Like I said, I like to put the solution right in the middle and couple numbers to the right and a couple of numbers to the left. Now, since 39 is the solution, I'm going to do a closed circle, okay, right on 39. Closed circle means a circle where you fill in the inside, okay? All right. Next one, similar problem, but h minus 1/2 equals 3/4. Okay, so again, just like before, I'm going to first copy down that problem here. H minus 1/2 is equal to 3/4. Okay, now I'm going to draw the line, box the variable, and I'm first going to write that I need to add 1/2 on both sides. And I know that negative 1/2 plus 1/2 is going to give you 0. Okay, so now the answer is going to be h equals, but I need to do 3/4 plus 1/2. Now, instead of doing that in my head and instead of turning it into a decimal, this time I'm going to model that as a fraction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write right here 3/4 plus 1/2. In order for me to add fractions, you need to have common denominators. Now, my denominators are 2 and 4. Now, so since 2 goes into 4, 2 is a factor of 4, that means my least common denominator is 4. So what I'm going to do is I am going to multiply this fraction by 2, but I don't need to do anything here because my denominator is already 4, okay? So then what happens is I have 3/4 plus, and then 2/4. Now that my denominators are the same, I can add my numerators and keep my common denominator. So then what I would get is 5/4. I am almost done. This is an improper fraction, so I'm going to do in and out. I'm going to divide 5 in, 4 out. 4 goes into 5 one time, which is 4, remainder 1. This means my answer is 1 and 1/4. Goes in this order. So H is 1 and 1/4. That's the answer. And nicely box the answer. And now I'm going to graph it. Okay, 1 and 1/4 is first of all between 1 and 2 because it's 1 and something. Now, it's 1 and 1/4. So it's between 1 and 2. Okay, and think about it like this. So I'm going to divide this into 4 equal parts. So here's 1, here's 1 and 1/4, 1 and 2/4 or 1.5, 1 and 3/4, and then there's the 2. So then 1 and 1/4 would be this one right here. And that's the solution. Okay, now, if you go to the next page, this time we're gonna apply addition and subtraction one-step equations in geometry. Okay, so let's take a look here. It says solving equations to represent geometric concepts. You can write equations to represent geometric relationships. Here is a mini lesson. This is something that you already learned from elementary, okay? But we need to use those information, okay? So first of all, you have a straight line. So a straight line has an angle measurement of 180 degrees. So this is 180 degrees. Straight line always has 180 degrees. Now that means, let's say you have two angles and together, okay, they form a straight line, which means both of these angles are going to add up to 180 degrees. These two angles that when you add, if they add up to 180 degrees, or when you put the two angles together and they form straight line, these two angles are called supplementary angles. Okay, now we have another type of very common angle, which is called a right angle, right? A right angle looks like this, okay? And the angle measurement right here is a right angle, okay? And also understand that a right angle is half of a straight line, okay? So a right angle has an angle measure of 90 degrees, half of the straight line. So then if two angles together form a right angle, this angle and this angle together form a right angle, or if you have two angles and when you add them together, they add up to 90 degrees, then you know that, these angles have a special name. These two angles are called complementary angles. Okay. Oh, sorry, could you rest over here? I need to do this. Thank you. Okay. Can you close the door hard? Thank you. Sorry, that was my daughter. Okay. Sorry, I was a little distracted because my daughter was coming in when I was explaining this. So hopefully what I said makes sense, okay? So when you have two angles that when you put together, they form a right angle, those are called complementary angles. Or when you have two angles and then when you add those angle measurements and they are at equal to 90 degrees together, they're also called complementary angles. Okay, if two angles form a straight line together, supplementary angles. Or you have two angles that together, those angle measurements add up to 180, also supplementary angles. Okay, so then we have a couple problems right here. So the first one says, find the measure of the unknown angle, and that unknown angle is the one that's right here, this x right here. Now, what do we know here? Well, we know a few things. First of all, we know that I have a straight line here, which means these angles add up to 180 degrees. What else do we know? Well, we know that that straight line is divided into two separate angles. One of them is 60 degrees and the other one is x. And the question is, what is the measurement of this angle? Okay, and I know that since these two add up to 180 and since this is 60, 180 minus 60, oh, my answer is going to be 120. Okay, that's correct. However, we want to apply what we learned in the one-step equations. So this is how we are going to write the equation and then solve it. So we're going to write this unknown angle x plus the 60 degrees together is equal to 180 degrees. Hopefully that makes sense. We know that this plus this together has to be 180 degrees. Now we just need to solve it. Draw the line, box the variable, To get rid of this plus 60, I'm going to do the opposite operation. So I'm going to do minus 60 on both sides. X is out. So X equals 180 minus 60 is 120. So the answer is 120 degrees. Well, if I put 120 degrees right here and add them together, it is 180 degrees. So I know my answer is correct. Similarly, here I have a right angle. I know that right angle means together it's equal to 90 degrees. And I also know that it's divided again into two separate angles in which this one is 65 degrees here, and then here is the X, the unknown angle. So to figure out the angle measurement of X, I'm gonna set up an equation similar to this. This is how it works. I'm gonna do 60, the order doesn't matter, plus X equals 90. This time they're equal to 90 degrees. Let's solve it. Draw the line. Now I'm gonna box the variable. Okay, in fact, I'm gonna box this plus X together just because I know that when we were boxing terms, I always said box the sign that's in front of the term. Okay, now I need to get rid of this 60. What do I need to do? Do I add 60 or subtract 60? You need to subtract 60. The reason is, 65. This is a 65. I just realized it. You need to subtract 65. It is not because of this plus sign behind the 65. It is because this is a positive 65. So the opposite of that would be to subtract 65. And you need to do that on both sides of the equation. So 65 minus 65, you X it out. So what you have left is X equals 90 minus 65. You need to borrow. 10 minus 5 is 5. 8 minus 6 is 2. So the answer is X equals 25 degrees. So then if I put 25 degrees here, and if you do 65 plus 25, you get 90 degrees. Last one. Write and solve an equation to find the complement of a 42-degree angle. Tell what the variable represents. Well, you know how above I said, if two angles form 90 degrees, or they add up to 90 degrees, two angles make a right angle, or two angles add up to 90 degrees, they are called complementary angles. What that means is 42 degree, it's complement. So if you add 42 with another angle, they're going to add up to 90 degrees because it says they're complement, okay? They're complementary angles. So the first one is given 42 degrees, and I don't know what the second one is, but I know that since they're complementary angles, they are going to add up to 90 degrees together. So I can set up the problem like this. The unknown angle measure plus the 42 together is equal to 90 degrees. Okay, now let's solve it. Draw the line, box the variable. I have plus 42 here, so to get rid of it, I'm going to subtract 42 on both sides. X this out. So my answer is X equals, now I need to do 90 minus 42. So I'm gonna borrow, 10 minus 2 is 8, 8 minus 4 is 4. So my answer is 48 degrees. And you know that if you add 48 plus 42, they're equal to 90. So you know that these are complementary angles. Tell what the variable represents. X represents the complement of a 42-degree angle. Okay. All right. And that's it. Thank you.